What if everything you know about ancient humans is wrong? Not slightly wrong, fundamentally, completely, embarrassingly wrong. Because the image most people carry, the serious, survival-focused, grunt and hunt primitive human, is missing one enormous detail. They were drinking, regularly, intentionally, across every continent, across thousands of years. And the evidence isn't hidden. It's been sitting in plain sight in museums and archaeological reports for decades. We just didn't want to talk about it. Let's start with the oldest direct evidence of brewing ever found. 2018 Rockethet Cave on the slopes of Mount Carmel. Archaeologists excavating a 13,000-year-old Natufian burial site discover something unexpected in stone mortars carved directly into the cave floor. Starch residue and microscopic traces of fermented wheat and barley. The dating results come back, 13,000 years old. But here's the part that rewrites the story completely. This is thousands of years before the invention of agriculture. For decades, historians assumed humans settled down to farm so they could make bread. But this evidence suggests the opposite. They settled down because they wanted to brew beer. The beer before bread hypothesis suggests that the very birth of agriculture, the foundation of human civilization, was driven by our desire for alcohol. These weren't primitive gatherers. They were deliberate, sophisticated brewers. But the story goes back much farther than 13,000 years. Let's go back 10 million years. Our primate ancestors lived in trees, but during a period of major climate shift, they began spending more time on the forest floor. There, they regularly encountered fallen fermenting fruit. Normally, ethanol is toxic to primates, but around this time, a critical genetic mutation occurred in our ancestors, a single change in the ADH4 gene that allowed them to metabolize ethanol 40 times faster than other primates. It was an evolutionary survival hack. Fermented fruit provided a massive, dense source of calories that other animals couldn't safely consume. We didn't just learn to drink. Our very biology adapted to tolerate and seek out alcohol millions of years before we ever built a brewery. This is what scientists call the Drunken Monkey hypothesis. Now, let's go to Göbekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey, the oldest temple complex on Earth, built over 11,000 years ago. Among the massive T-shaped stone pillars carved with intricate animals, archaeologists found giant limestone troughs holding up to 160 liters of liquid. Inside those troughs, traces of calcium oxalate, a chemical byproduct of beer brewing. Why would hunter-gatherers who didn't even have permanent homes yet build massive stone vats to brew hundreds of gallons of beer? Because alcohol was the ultimate social glue. It allowed disparate, suspicious bands of nomadic humans to gather, bond, and cooperate on a scale never before seen. To build the first monumental architecture in human history. Let's go to Jiahu, China, 9,000 years ago. Biomolecular archaeologist Patrick McGovern analyzed residue from ancient pottery jars and found a complex, highly intentional recipe, a fermented beverage made from rice, honey, wild grapes, and hawthorn fruit. This wasn't an accidental fermentation. It was a carefully crafted, multi-ingredient cocktail designed for flavor, potency, and preservation. Across the ancient world, from the Sumerians who worshipped Ninkasi, the goddess of beer, to the Egyptians who paid the builders of the pyramids in daily rations of beer, alcohol was not a luxury. It was a cornerstone of society. Here's where the science gets genuinely mind-bending. In his research on human evolution, philosopher Edward Slingerland proposes what is known as the drunk hypothesis. The theory is this. Humans are naturally tribal, suspicious of strangers, and highly analytical. To transition from small hunter-gatherer bands to massive cooperative cities, we needed a tool to temporarily disable our prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for impulse control, calculation, and distrust. Alcohol down-regulates this area, reducing anxiety, fostering trust, and sparking creative, out-of-the-box thinking. Slingerland suggests that without a chemical mechanism to lower our cognitive guards and foster trust among strangers, large-scale human cooperation might never have taken off. Alcohol didn't just accompany human civilization, it may have made it possible. Here's where I leave you. For most of human history across most of the world, altering consciousness with fermented drinks was not a vice, it was not a crisis, it was a social technology, one that humanity used to build trust, spark creativity, and bind communities together across thousands of years. Modern society often views alcohol through the lens of escape or excess, but its historical reality is far more profound. Ancient humans weren't escaping their world when they drank, they were attempting to build it.